Chapter 3. The heavy fire door slammed behind him. Mathias paused at the top of the cement stairs, their epoxy-painted surface worn from decades of footsteps. Dusty silence washed over him, dampening the demon's fury. He released a pent-up breath. Waterman, Victoria, Gomez. It had been a rough day. The quiet sanctuary of his basement lab called to him. He glided down the stairs, the evidence bag swinging from his fist. Officer Boone glanced up as Mathias emerged from the stairwell. His feet were propped on the desk behind the security cage that walled off most of the basement. Rows of shelves stretched into the dimness, stacked with evidence from hundreds of cases. Mathias nodded at Boone, and the young officer returned to his magazine with a yawn. Mathias shouldered his way through the door to his right, noting the crime lab sign had come loose at one corner again. The flicker of cold fluorescent lights welcomed him. Erin's head popped up from behind a supply shelf. A wide grin split her face. Mathias returned it with a quirk of his mouth.
"What did you bring me?"
She bounded around the metal exam table and took the evidence bags. The demon shifted at her sweet scent and subsided. Mathias took a step back to be certain. They'd worked together long enough that the demon knew to keep its distance, but after the day he'd had, a little caution couldn't hurt. He rubbed the inside corners of his eyes with a thumb and forefinger. Someone kidnapped a girl from Fellmond Academy.
The snooty private school?
Erin held up the bagged sandal and adjusted her glasses.
Who's the kid?
Vicky Fenton. He couldn't bring himself to use her full name. Her mom is some hotshot CEO of a big holdings company, Jessica Waterman. Erin shot him a startled look.
You're kidding.
I wish I was. Mathias lifted the camera strap over his head. He plucked the camera's memory card from its niche and held it out to Erin. She's challenging to work with. Erin snorted as she accepted the chip.
That's putting it mildly. A lot of people hate her. Have they questioned the ex-husband yet?
He shook his head. They already have a suspect. Why? Do you think they should?
You should watch the news more often.
Erin sat at her computer and plugged the memory card into a reader. Mathias shrugged. I pay attention to important things. Real crimes like assaults and murders. I'm not interested in gossip. Erin gave a short laugh. Her eyes stayed glued to the screen as she copied files, but her voice contained a hint of wry amusement.
That gossip tells us their motives.
She pulled the card from the port and swiveled in her chair, hand outstretched. He accepted the chip and leaned against the corner of her desk. Fair enough. What did I miss?
Things have been nasty between Jessica Waterman and Charles Fenton for a while. They were separated for 2 years, and she kept delaying the divorce. I think she wanted to be sure he didn't get any of her money. They didn't have a prenup, you know. When they finally went through with the divorce, Waterman's lawyers wiped the floor with the guy. He got no money, no real estate, no rights to see his daughter. Nothing. They stopped short of a DNA test, but they argued he might not even be Victoria's father.
Victoria. The word hit Mathias between the eyes. Flickers of red and black edged his vision. He blinked hard. This had to stop. A name shouldn't affect him this much.
You okay, Matt?
He turned away, raising a hand to his face. Fine, just something in my eye.
Anyway, Fenton was furious. He threatened to come after Waterman and take their daughter. It was all over social media. I'm surprised he's not at the top of the suspect list.
She stood and walked over to the evidence.
Who is the prime suspect?
Mathias reached across the table and lifted the hard drive. Security footage from the school. Waterman identified the kidnapper's vehicle as belonging to the leader of the local labor union, and a license plate search confirmed it. Erin's face paled.
What's his name?
Mark Jerome.
No, it isn't him. I know it isn't.
She grabbed the hard drive and ran to her computer. When she plugged it in, the most recent image flashed onto the large screen.
Oh no,
she whispered. Mathias approached her. What's wrong?
That's my grandpa's friend's car.
Her voice shook a little. He winced. This case was hitting too close to home. Would he do this? Erin shook her head.
Absolutely not. He's like my grandpa. He does things by the book. Something else has to be going on.
She backed up the video to where the vehicle first appeared and hit the play button. The black SUV raced up the street and jounced over the curb into the far end of the parking lot. It slammed to a halt facing the camera, sun glaring off the windshield, and the driver's side door flew open. 2 teens in school uniforms, a girl and a boy, jumped back. The boy sprawled onto the asphalt. From behind the door, a pair of hands grabbed the girl. The door closed, and the SUV whipped around and tore out of the parking lot. Aaron paused the video on the frame they had started with, the license plate clearly visible. She leaned toward the screen, nibbling her lower lip.
Not much to go on. It's at the edge of the camera's range, and he managed to stay out of sight. Maybe I can enhance the picture, pick up a reflection.
The witness said he wore a mask. Mathias folded his arms. The camera angle, the sun, the speed of the kidnapping. Either Jerome had gotten unbelievably lucky, or he knew what he was doing. Why would he let them see the license plate? The chief was right. Something didn't add up. Waterman told us he sent her threatening letters. Aaron shrugged one shoulder, her nose 2 inches from the image.
He's pretty blunt. He could have sent a list of demands and consequences, and she saw it as a threat.
She sat back in her chair with a soft grunt.
But he'd never hurt anyone, let alone kidnap a teenage girl.
She grabbed her phone from the desk and tapped the screen. What are you doing?
Calling my grandpa.
He plucked the phone from her hand.
Hey, what the heck, Matt?
She lunged at the device, but he held it out of her reach. This is an open investigation. If you think your grandfather has useful information, tell Gomez. You don't want to be pulled from the case. He sat the phone back on the desk. The best thing you can do for Jerome right now is to analyze the evidence we have. She looked at the phone and her shoulders slumped.
You're right. What can I work on?
He returned to the table, Aaron at his heels, and sorted through the bags. He handed her a specimen vial containing flakes of dirt. This came from the tires.
On it.
She snatched the container and gave him a crooked grin.
Thanks for keeping me on track, I mean. Are you going to stick around while I run these tests?
Mathias nodded. I still need to catalog the contents of the victim's purse and log everything into evidence. Let me know what you find. She tossed him a wave as she bustled through the door to the chem lab. Stillness returned to the room. Mathias rocked his head from side to side, easing the stiffness in his neck. The demon had ignored Aaron today, but he had to stay on guard. He wove between the supply shelves to the back of the room, where his desk nestled between rows of filing cabinets. The barcode reader for scanning the evidence bags should be... Where was it? It wasn't on the desk or any of the cabinets. There, on the empty desk farther down the wall. He picked up the device and quirked an eyebrow. No one had used this space since Jim retired 2 months ago. The precinct hadn't hired another CSI to replace him yet. Aaron never touched his stuff, and the second lab tech was still out on medical leave. The hinges on the crime lab's main door squealed, followed by a bang as it shut. A floral scent drifted to him. Mathias froze. A tall, willowy woman with raven hair pulled into a ponytail rounded the edge of the shelves and stopped short.
Oh, I didn't realize anyone was here.
She looked him up and down, a languid smile touching her lips.
You must be Matt Hawthorne.
She extended her hand.
I'm Susan Atwan, the new CSI. Please call me Sue.
Nice to meet you, Sue. He gave her hand a perfunctory shake and took several steps back. An intoxicating scent surrounded her. Images of Victoria bubbled to the surface of his mind. Her fragrance had been similar. The demon erupted from slumber, slavering over the memory of the only sweet blood Mathias had tasted. I was just leaving. He headed for the exit, dropping the scanner on the table as he passed. Logging the evidence would have to wait. Sue's voice floated after him.
Okay, see you around?
Her words cut off as the door slammed behind him. Mathias bounded up the stairs, willing the blackness to recede from his eyes. So much for his sanctuary.